Ladies and gentlemen, I have been introduced. Engineer Abdona Twine, Commissioner Rural Education. Somebody will, thank you very much. So the topic I'm handling today is policy and institutional reforms. So this means we are coming from here, we are going up here. That's what it means, that we are transitioning from somewhere to another level. So I will start with reminding us the mandate of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, which is to establish, promote the development, strategically manage and safeguard the rational and sustainable exploration and utilization of energy and mineral resources for social and economic development. For this case, we will only look at what is relevant to energy, and that's what has brought us here. That beautiful picture is one of our renewable generation plant to highlight that we are really exploiting sustainably. Energy policy, where have we started from? Energy policy, 2002, whoever is helping me should move with me. We started from an energy policy. There is a gadget here I didn't see, now I have it. So we started with energy policy 2002 that has moved us a journey of over 20 years. And this policy was addressing a number of issues and has brought us a number of gains. I will look at gains so that we understand how we have moved for over time. One is that when this policy was coming into place, our generation capacity was about 3017. We had a few hydropower plants, and we are happy to report that we have moved a very big stride, and with the commissioning of 4 units of Karuma, our generation capacity now is 1,778.1 megawatts. So that's how far we have moved. At the time this policy came into place, we wanted to address losses, which were over 38% at the time. And as we speak, we are below 20% of losses. And if it was not a few challenges, we had actually moved to around 16%. But those challenges will also be addressed since we have a new policy that addresses that. The other gain that we have had is increasing access from about 26% to about 57% in that ratio, and the previous speaker have highlighted that. I will stop at that. The rest will be obtained in my presentation. So, what are the challenges that we still see and that require us to move from one level to another in terms of reforms? As we speak, we still have low levels of access. When you speak of 57% grid and off-grid, some people will say, where are you? Some people have reached 100%. long time ago, and we are still here following. Inadequate energy sector investments. When I go through the presentations, you will find that we still need billions and billions of US dollars to reach where we aspire to be. And I hope we will reach there soon, and I will be there as a witness. The next one is quality of service and reliable power supply. I am seated with an industrialist. He was telling me, but Abdon, what initiatives do you have in the store that we can improve on reliable supply? The other one is electricity tariffs. We still believe that the electricity tariffs are high. So these challenges must be addressed, and we acknowledge as a sector that they exist, and normally they say if you know a problem, then you have a solution, and I know we have a solution. The other slide speaks of reviewing the energy policy 2022 to usher us into the new policy. I will not speak a lot about that, but what I wanted to inform this gathering today is that we have the new energy policy 2023, which was launched in September 2023, that now is taking us to a new level to address some of these challenges that I have highlighted. This is a 10-year policy, and indeed we believe with this new policy we are energized to take Ugandan energy sector to another level. So the next slide highlights the vision and the mission, the goals, the objectives. This one, I am sure each of us has a copy. We will run through so that we familiarize ourselves with this copy, and we know where the energy sector is going, so that you go with us. I think that's why we are here, so that together we do what? We stand. And they say one by one makes a bundle. So we have to move together in order to achieve aspirations of the energy sector. This policy, I have to bring out that it is aligned to national and international commitments, because as Uganda, we have to move with our peers and with those who have been there first. So that's why, like now you see International Energy Agency here, we are collaborating with them, and we have to follow the global trend so that we are not developing the sector as an island. The next slide still speaks of alignment, speaks of linkage of policy with national electrification strategy. So we have a national electrification strategy. This one now focuses, we are bringing down the policies into sub-components of the energy sector. So we have a national electrification strategy which speaks to access. How do we electrify everybody? And the target is 100% by 2030 with a budget of 4.6 million US dollars. Now the dollars have started coming out, and we believe we will get there We will get there soon with the commitment of the sector and our dear stakeholders. So, what are the outcomes of the implementation of the new policy? Definitely, it is to address the challenges that I have already highlighted, and in this and addressing this, you are looking at improving the socio-economic of Uganda. So I have highlighted these outcomes, and you will follow with me. That document speaks a lot on those outcomes. The next slide speaks to the generation mix, which clearly comes out in the strategy, and the previous speakers have highlighted on the capacities, and what I only bring out is the dollars again, which will sit down there and broken down to each source of supply. So we need 245 billion US dollars to achieve our aspirations of generation. Next slide is on our targets for transmission infrastructure, where we are targeting to reach 13,000 kilometers by 2040, so that we are able to supply enough bulk power to our dear consumers, all categories, as we prepare the nation to the next level. The next slide gives us, again, the dollars. We need 3.84 billion US dollars to achieve that aspiration. So if you're a good mathematician, 4.68 plus 245 plus 3.84, we can do our mathematics. And this one excludes access. This is on infrastructure. The next slide provides the legal framework that we are working with. One is the Electricity Act 1999. Somebody will ask me that, but I heard that you passed a new law. That's true. We have Electricity Amendment Act 2022. These two work together. So the Electricity Act 1999 was not repealed, but improved. So we have those two laws that are walking us through the journey so that we achieve our aspirations as the energy sector. We have the Atomic Energy Act, which is under review. Somebody has already highlighted. I will not dwell much into that. We have a bill, energy efficiency and conservation bill, which will also come to strengthen the legal framework so that we have a good environment to prepare the sector forward. The next slide is on institutional reforms. Institutional reforms, we have moved a journey. We started with reforms of 1999. I see my senior here, Engineer Karekao, who was part of that, where we had Uganda Electricity Board, and bundled to create several agencies: Uganda Electricity Generation Company, Transmission Company, Distribution Company, and Electricity Regulatory Authority. And they have walked us a journey through the energy policy of 2002 But now, with the new policy of 2023, we are looking into second generation reforms. And what are these reforms? These reforms, one is that we had an agency called Rural Verification Agency, which was recommended to be mainstreamed in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. And as I speak, we have achieved this. So the Rural Verification Agency now, if you want its functions, it is the Rural Verification Department in the Ministry of Energy and the Mineral Development, which I head as a pioneer commissioner. The other one was to merge the three utilities which came from UEB. That's Electricity Generation Company Limited, Distribution Company Limited, and Transmission Company Limited. And we are proposing that we form a company called Uganda National Verification Company Limited, UNEC, and the process is in high gear. If you have been following the news, you will be informed that in that direction, the cabinet has already passed a bill which will help pass into this direction. Public Service is doing a lot of work to make sure that the necessary institutional structures are in place, and Ministry of Finance has started the budgeting process to make sure that this merger, among other mergers, take place. The other reform, which is also a major one, is consolidating the distribution network. Some of us have been used to 13 territories. Some of us have been used to many distribution companies, but we are looking into reducing these companies to one company, to one distribution utility in the near future, and it has its advantages, a lot of them that we can discuss, because I know my time, the moderator is looking at the watch, but I have all the information in my head, and there is documentation also that we can share. The last one that I wanted to conclude with is that we are retaining the Electricity Regulatory Authority so that it can help us to regulate the sector and to ensure a level playing field whoever will be in the energy sector. I thank you. I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Abdon, for that wonderful presentation. A round of applause again for Engineer Abdon. At this point, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to invite my former boss, also the acting CEO in this place, Dr. Geoffrey Okoboye from the Electricity Regulatory Authority. Dr. Okoboye, you're welcome to take us through the next presentation.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister, the Permanent Secretary represented here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Geoffrey Okoboye. I'm representing the CEO, Engineer Ziria Tivarwa Waku. And she sends you greetings. I have one slide that I'm going to make, so I request that that slide is put on the PowerPoint. What I'm going to talk about is what has been the outcome of the reforms of the Act So Engineer Abdon talked of two documents, the 1999 Act and the amendment that was done in 2022 in May. So what has become of that? What were the key outcomes of that amendment? That amendment had the reforms touching on 5 areas. It touched on policy, it touched on governance, it touched on the market, it touched on our organization as ERA, the administrative aspects of it, and it touched on the consumers. That is the summary of what was done in 2022 May. Now, they have already talked about policy. I don't want to go on that area, but you can see that the policy has resulted into the energy policy that has been presented here several times. The amendment touched on the market. And very important, on what aspects of the market did the amendment touch? Importantly, it touched on the issue of the monopoly in the business, which was undertaken by the bulk buyer. He would buy in bulk from generators and sell in bulk to distribution and supply companies. Now, monopoly has its own challenges, and these are the challenges they tried to address in this particular case. When you buy in bulk, so you do not give a chance to others who may also want to buy, maybe at a competitive price from the one generating. And when you are selling, you may also have issues to do with the price at which you are selling, the issue of reliability and maybe availability. So that part addressed that in the first segment of the market reform. So with that, we do have now a regulation which we have put in place, which is a regulation to do with selling and buying in bulk by others other than UETCL. So we have a multi-market model. But where are we with this? So we now have the what? The regulation. But also to follow on that is that UETCL, as a government company, has also been a system operator and is also the only company which has the license for operating the high voltage lines and substations at the high voltage. So in that case, in order to improve on this area, there is also regulation on independent power transmission. So this is one where private investors can now invest in transmission infrastructure, including substations. So this is also a regulation and an area which is now a new area of investment by the private sector. There is also another important area to do with the reforms at the market, is the introduction of the issue of net metering. This is another area we are also finalizing, and there will be eligibility to do net metering. If you have your generation source and you are generating more than you can use, then you are capable of banking some of your energy on the network and be able to use it at a later stage. So that is the other aspect to do with the market reforms. So we are looking at three important aspects. But within the bulk buying and selling, there are rules that will need to be put in place. And these are the market rules. There will be a market operator. You cannot have this implemented without having a designated market operator. And the market rules that you will play with. And the eligible consumers. And the eligible sellers. So all that is coming up to create this environment in which the bulk buying and selling is going to happen at a competitive level. So that is this side, one side. I said the part to do with the policy, I will not talk about it. I can only say something about governance, and we can say that there has been improvements in the area of dispute resolution. So that was also done. The Energy Fund was also an issue that was created. But on the administrative side, what I can say is that there was some level of enhancement of the funding of the regulator. So that was moving the level of the generation levy from 0.3 to 0.7. There has been also areas of improvement in enforcement on issues to do with the authority being able to levy penalties and charges where there are issues to do with non-compliance. And the last part is to do with the consumer level, and at that level, we have seen that the penalties have been improved for issues of vandalism, which is rampant in the country, and we believe that this is going a long way in improving on issues to do with minimizing the pilferage of the infrastructure, pilferage of the energy that people believe that they should access without paying, which is not a good thing. That is the nutshell of the reforms that we are implementing at the level of the regulator following the amendment of the Act. Now we can see how they work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Okoboye. Another round of applause to Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll take us through a panel discussion. We have seen from the two presentations that policy and regulation are key to advancing the ambition that Uganda has, especially with the developments that have occurred regarding the Energy Policy 2023, and then also the amendment of the Electricity Act. So we see how these can drive the ambition towards achieving the targets set under there. Without further ado, allow me to welcome our panelists. Maybe just to mention, our panelists today offer us a rich experience in the sector. They have been around for some time, and they are at the front of implementing these reforms. So allow me to invite Engineer Abdul Natwine from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, who is the Commissioner, Rectification Department. Engineer Abdul. Also, allow me to invite Dr. Geoffrey Okoboye again, who's going to be our other panelist from the Electricity Regulatory Authority. Dr. Okoboye has so many years of experience in regulation, and yeah, we are honored to have you. The third panelist is going to be from Umeme. Allow me to invite Mr. Mbaga Sinze from Umeme. Mr. Mbaga, please. Mr. Mbaga also has a lot of experience in regulation, and is handling the regulation segment from UMEME. Allow me also to invite our last panelist, last but not least, from UETCL, and that is going to be the acting or the deputy chief executive director. That is Engineer Masco Richard. Engineer Masco offers a very rich experience in the sector. He has over 21 years experience in generation, transmission, distribution. It's an honor to have you with us, Engineer Masco. I myself, the moderator for the session, I'm also an electrical engineer with several years, I think over 8 in policy and regulation. And I'll be taking our panelists through this discussion. You're welcome, our panelists. I'll start off with transmission, and that is over to you, Engineer Masco. We've heard that from the last presentation from ERA that the sector has now been opened up to this competition, where we would have private actors coming into the transmission segment. And perhaps then we have competition in this segment. But I want to understand from you, given your experience with how transmission is done in this country and the single buyer model that we are currently operating as a country, what framework needs to be in place to effectively attract the right blend of funding and the players to significantly ramp up capital investments and enhance the transmission capacity, again, to meet the targets that have been highlighted in the energy policy. Over to you, Engineer Masco.
Thank you very much. The audience, all in your respective capacities, good afternoon. In my view, I think there are 3 areas where we need to concentrate if we are to successfully implement private sector participation in the transmission, power transmission area. One, we must have a very strong regulatory framework and of course all the enabling laws. There are other 2 areas, in my view, which we must work on. Something must be done about our land system. We all know the challenges we face when we are implementing projects. And thirdly, we must at all times be in a position or position ourselves to be able to reach markets external to our boundaries. This is one way, one sure way of ensuring there is market and we can kind of ensure load growth, which will definitely attract private investor participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Masco, for the really brief but on point remarks there. We take note of the regulatory framework that needs to be in place, but then also the market at large. My next question goes to the regulator, and that is Dr. Okoboy. Doctor, you've talked about the single buyer model that we are currently, or at least we are transitioning from, to a fair and competitive market. But again, how can we ensure that in this new framework, the competition will drive the incentives to ensure that we also maintain the affordability within the sector and then also the reliability of the electricity supply? So within this new energy market, how do we make sure that in as much as we move on to this setup or this framework, we still harvest the benefits, again, that ensure that we have affordability, which is a key issue, and it's on both ends, to the consumer, but then also to the other players. So how, take us through, Doctor, how you think we can achieve this. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Engineer Masco talked about need for strong regulatory frameworks, and he's right. And we are doing that. So first and foremost, it's important to put in place clear market rules. That will give us a level playing field. We shall need a referee, that is the market operator. So that is the direction we are working on. So in the coming year, we shall see a market operator. Then we shall clearly look at designation of those who will be the sellers, and then designation of those who will be the consumers. So it is not just open that you will come, but we shall assess and understand whether when you come in, you will be eligible and able to play in this field very well. But most and important is that monopoly, if you are removing monopoly and creating competition, it means people go and discuss and negotiate and determine what they believe is competitive enough as a price they would consider to buy and sell power. And this is key. At present, in this market of single buyer, just to let you know that at the level of generation, the weighted average generation tariff is about 60 cents. It's between 5.6 to 60 cents, depending on what type of fuel we are using. If we run into more of hydrocarbons, that is HFO and diesel, then you have a generation tariff rising a bit, maybe to 6 cents. But as you are aware that we have also had cases where we are selling to large consumers of electricity at even 5.7 cents. So you can see that the tariff already for consumers, some consumers is as competitive as 5.7 at off-peak. Comes to the new reforms where you are now able to negotiate and buy energy at a company that is generating currently or that will generate in the future. So when you asked me whether it would be ensure competition and affordable tariffs, reliability, and availability, the answer is yes and no. The yes part of it is that when the private entities go into a negotiation in the short term, I'm not very sure. That's why my friends, even from the steel industries, are here, that they may not run quickly into that in the short run because they are already receiving competitive tariffs in this single buyer model. But in the longer term, and we are already seeing this coming up, that to ensure reliability, large consumers are likely to even set up their own generation facilities closer to them. And then they are able to receive this power at a good rate, and it is reliable, and it is available. So that is the good thing about this reform. That in the future, in this short term, it may not look to be very good for them. Even if you are closer to, I give an example, Nightil is closer to Narubale, but to buy from Narubale. When Narubale already has an agreement with the UETCL, it may be a challenge for them to be able to immediately get the power, because to go through all the segments from generation, it will go to transmission, it will go to distribution, because they consume at 11 and 33 kVA. You cannot change the network for them to get directly from Narubale into their what? Into their factory. So you will still be encumbered with signing various agreements which may be cumbersome. But in the long run, you find companies will even put up, and I even encourage to think about it, companies doing their own generation and selling to themselves, while they are still having also what? The supply from the main grid. In that way, you ensure 100% availability, 100% reliability, and the affordability of it can be looked at it also in that way. So short term, long term, very good.
Thank you so much, Doctor. My next question goes to the ministry, that is to Engineer Abdon. Engineer, as a country, we still grapple with the issue of electricity access. We currently stand at 20%. The minister, I think in the last, when she was launching the Energy Week, she mentioned that we have now moved a step closer from 19% to now 20%, and that is grid access. But then also, we still have other challenges, and affordability is one of them that Dr. Okoboye has spoken to just now. However, in the past, Engineer Abdon, we've seen that policies such as the electricity connection policy goes a long way to ramp up the number of connections on the network, and then, of course, in the long run, ensure that the access is improved. In this case, how can government work with the utility to put strategies in place that can attract the right blend of funding in the distribution segment to improve this last mile access? Again, reflecting the energy policy targets of 80% by 2040. Over to you, Engineer.
Thank you, Moderator. Before you go to the energy policy and the like, allow me to start from my limited financial accounting. In financial accounting, when you look at the balance sheet equation, it says assets equals liabilities plus equity. To amass assets, that means you have to borrow. That means as a shareholder, you have to put in money. So if you come back to the energy sector, or what we call electricity supply industry, you have this animal which they call a tariff. It also mirrors this balance sheet equation, that your tariff will always equal the investments you put in the energy sector. It will always plus the money you need to operate this electricity industry. Now, if you look at economies which have developed, you will find that, and where we say that the sector is sustainable, you will find that financing of this sector, operation and investment, comes from the tariff. For our case, we haven't reached there, and that's why we have strategies so that we can grow to this level. What are the challenges that we have? Is that when you increase the tariff so that you can bring out the component of investment, my dear consumers here will say, no, the tariff is high. So that means you only recover money for operations. That animal which called the investment is suppressed. And what are the strategies now that we can have so that we generate enough resources to undertake investments and also increase access. So this one, it can't be one size fits all. It is a combination of issues that you have to look at, so that first of all, you address that shortfall in the tariff, but also allow mechanisms for the utilities to undertake investments. So one of the strategies actually is to make sure that you cut on your generation cost, because this is the biggest component in terms of this tariff. When you cut down this generation cost, you are able to have a sizable tariff that part of it will go into investments. The regulator will allow some money to these utilities so that they can do investments. But where we are now, that money is not enough. But in terms of this strategy, it is already in place. That's why you saw government invest in Isimba and Karuma, so that we can bring out the tariff. And I can tell you that the tariff of Isimba is 4.16 for the first 15 years, and thereafter it will reduce to 1.01. That means we are working on that tariff component, which will help us to generate, to have a window for resources to go into investment. If you look at Karuma, the tariff is 4.97 for the first 10 years, and 2.7 for the 10th to 15th year, and thereafter 1.17. So that one gives us a leeway that if you reduce this tariff, you have a window where you can put in some investments in the tariff, and my dear consumers here will not complain. The other one is to make sure you increase the demand so that you benefit from economies of scale. If you have more consumers, that means you will generate enough revenue as a sector, and you have a window to put investments in the tariff so that you can make more investments. The other window is the model or how utilities operate, that we need to be flexible a bit so that we allow these utilities to access concessional funds on the market, and they put this money in the network. The way we work now, you find that whatever doesn't come from the tariff, it is on the books of government, and I think we need to change the way we are operating, and we have already started on this. The other one is actually not the responsibility of utilities, but the responsibility of all of us, especially when it comes to vandalism. Here we are trying to close all gaps where we just waste money, so that that money goes into investments. So when you look at investments, vandalism, you put down a line, you will cut on corrections of the energy sector. That means you will not meet the revenue requirement of the sector. That one reduces on the window of investment because you are generating less from what you have targeted. But also, this vandalism increases what? The cost of the sector, because you have to replace that infrastructure that has been vandalized. And probably the last one, which I will not talk much about it, is integrity. That whatever comes into the sector, can it be utilized for that purpose? Also, that one helps us to have resources to move the sector forward. I thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Abdon. I will switch over to Mr. Mbaga. from Umeme. Mr. Mbanga, the panel has spoken about the different developments, more so from the policy and the amendment of the Electricity Act. And possibly this has implications on how you, the utility, the distribution utility, will deliver the mandate that you have to the population of Uganda. But at the same time, you have reported significant growth in almost all areas. And here it goes back to the electricity sales that you say have grown in the last 8 months, where we now have 7.5% for household, we have 9% for commercial, we have 9% again for medium industrial, and then also 11% for large industrial. At the same time, we are seeing a significant growth in the customer base, because before at least we were at 1.5 million, now we stand at 1.8. Given the discussion we've had, or the submission we've had from the other panelists, what do you think will need to be in place, also reflecting on the reforms that are happening, for the utility to continue growing the demand, that is expanding the customer base, but then at the same time still operate at the required level of service? And here, meaning that we still have the same levels of grid efficiency, where we have low distribution losses. So how will these developments in the long run affect your performance?
Thank you, Henry. Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for the question. Maybe just to clarify, the question is futuristic. I have 1 year to go in my concession. So I'm going to talk on behalf of the distribution segment into the future. Now, in terms of figures, actually the current, what we estimate to sell at the end of the year is 4,100 million units, 4,100 gigawatt hours. This will be up from 3,849 million units in 2023. So the average growth rate in the last 4 years is about 10%. For the customer numbers, by end of year we shall be at around 1.95 million. So from 1.7, so we expect 200,000 more customers before end of year. But in terms of looking at the different amendments, one, there is the amendment, electricity amendment, as presented by Dr. Okoboy, and also the policy that's in place, and we are looking at how these are going to help the distribution segment, how they incentivize. Now, Doctor did talk about, for the electricity amendments, the possibility or the legroom for the private sector to come into the transmission segment. Of course, at the distribution segment, this is welcome. You'd expect demand to grow, especially for the industrial parks, where private sector comes in, and because of speed, the speed might be better than government, the transmission company is able to make available power in different areas, which will grow the demand. The commissioner just talked about vandalism, and it's the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges we are facing now, where people are decommissioning electric lines. You go somewhere 4 kilometers, no more. Looking at this act, it's providing for a little bit more stringent punitive measures. Now, you'd expect that to help in the safety aspect, because some people die because of this. It also help in loss reduction, but also the investment that you'd have put in replacing such will be elsewhere to grow the sector. Then you have direct sale from the generators to the end user customers. like Era did say, I think this might be for the long term, but it will be very interesting. Of course, how it's put in place, the regulations that are going to guide that, but you'd expect that maybe in the long term, it could lead to a reduction in price and, of course, more consumption. Then one critical one, maybe doctor should have talked about it more, is when we look at the increment in the levy from 0.3% to 0.7%. From the distribution segment, I look at research and development. And for some of these, we are already seeing there are initiatives that are coming up. These initiatives need funding. If you're looking at things to do with cooking tariff, all that is research, and I think it's very important for the regulator to be supported in that aspect, because for us, we shall take whatever the regulator brings on board and grow the sector. Then looking at the policy, when you look at the strategies that are in place, or the strategies that are going to be implemented in the policy, there are things to do with the mix between private capital and government investment. And that's very important. For some time, as Umeme, we take stick, the tariff is high because of the tariff. That might be true to some extent, but then what happens when you don't invest? It means government should be able to come in and provide some sizable, so that the mix between private capital and monies from government gives you the right tariff. Otherwise, if you're looking at the private sector to drive most of it, and the tariff is very sensitive, we need about $120 million per year in the distribution segment. Now, if all that would have to come from private capital, it would be a lot, the tariff would burst. So that balance, as the policy is proposing, I think is very welcome. And of course, also the expansion of the network. They're talking about investment in the network. That's very welcome. Then the incentives for performance, incentives for reliability. We are talking about uptake, but reliability is as well very important. And the policy is talking about incentives. We've already seen some of these from the regulator, where, of course, incentives can be punitive. That's when the lines are not available. Then our distribution costs are reduced by a certain percentage. When we do so well, we are supposed to get that positive incentive. And I think that's very important. Of course, we shall have to go into how you measure that target that's given to you. But all this is very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mbanga, for those wonderful insights. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause to our panelists for answering them. At this juncture, allow me to open up the session to our dear audience and then invite questions to the panelists. Yes. Anyone with the mic?
Thank you, moderator. All protocol observed. My name is Engineer Yusuf Kadigo. I work with Bujagali Energy Limited. During the presentation of the energy policy, I observed that one of the objectives was to promote the development of nuclear energy. As other key players are closing out, of course, we dive into it. Are there any considerations that we have put in place to make sure that we do not prematurely close operations in the same? Dr. Abdul, thank you.
Thank you. Any other question to the panel?
Good afternoon. My name is Sriva Atega. I'm head of network planning in Omeme. Mine is a clarification between Engineer Abdon and the Dr. Okoboy. The issue of waivers and land acquisition. I know previously the government took a step that this can be handled through the government chief valuer for public projects. But here we are as private partners developing public projects, and we are dealing a discussion between a private, a willing buyer and an unwilling seller. We have had scenarios where it has been left to ourselves, and I'm not sure if I missed it between either the act or the new policy. I have not seen that one being catered for. So how do we deal with a situation where our new assets are site-specific and the owner of the land is unwilling to sell and you are willing to buy? We have had scenario. I can give one example. We have a situation for Kampala Center. Kampala Center, as of now, the network is, I think, 20 years old. The last time we got an approval from ERA was about 2 years ago. That project has been stuck on our head as Omeme, yet the asset is for the youth sale. Every time I go to the regulator, I ask for money to buy the land. I'm told the land is expensive. Every time I go to the land owner, he says they cannot lower the bargain. So is there any provision that the new developments can cater for that? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? I think we take 3 and then we let the panel answer.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My concern is on disruption as you implement, as you reverse this data unbundling. What are the special planned strategies to ensure minimum disruption from the point of view of the consumer as these changes are taking place? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll take those and then we'll let our panel provide clarity for that. But maybe Engineer Abdon on the first one regarding the development of nuclear. I've been alerted by the Commissioner Nuclear that they can take on or they can provide a response there. So, the mic, anyone with a mic? Anyone with a mic, please?
Thank you very much for that question. You're asking about whether we have mechanisms in place to avert the starting and then closing of nuclear power plants, like just in the case of Germany. There are 2 things. For the case of Germany, it was 2 things. It was a policy issue, and then the second one was a technical issue. The policy one is that they made a decision to close. But however, we need to have it in mind that most of those power plants were already reaching their end life. So they were at the time of decommissioning. Most of them had operated for more than 40 years. Those are the generation 2 reactors, old model reactors. So with that lifespan of about 40 to 50 years. So they did not provide or did not accept extension. So that was the case for Germany. Now, for us, Uganda, we are looking at, we already have a policy in place. And the government has made a decision to go nuclear full scale. We are looking at deploying the latest technologies, the generation 3+, which have a lifespan of 80 and can be even increased to 100 years of operation. And those are already in operation in UAE, in Russia, currently being constructed in Egypt, so they are there. So we are looking at having energy security, and that offers you that option of energy security and reliable power with capacity factors of over 80%. So you have full power most of the time, all the time. So our government policy is clear. We are going to go nuclear full scale. And we are actually having a series of mechanisms with the law, treaties in place to have this achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that clarification. Hopefully, the gentleman who asked that question, you've been answered. I want to move on to the second. This came from my gentleman from Omeme Network Planning, where you asked the issue of well leaves. I want to direct, and you specifically mentioned the regulator here. So maybe Dr. Okoboy, is this a question that you'd want to tackle in this case?
I think the issue of land is a national issue, and as you had earlier understood from the policy, the current policy, the challenge that Engineer Sande highlighted was the challenge of well leaves or land acquisition. Engineer Abdon can say more on that, but it is a real issue at national level. I will not add on that because it is an issue higher than regulation.
Perhaps Engineer Abdon then, please.
Thank you. Indeed, if you heard from the first presenter up to now, the issue of land acquisition has been highlighted as one of the challenges of the sector. Any interventions to be undertaken, there has to be in the Ministry of Lands, which has been put on red alert that we are having challenges, and we need initiatives so that if you don't agree with us, Chief Government Valuer has valued 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and you don't agree with Chief Government Valuer, can government access land as we negotiate? Can government access land maybe as you go to court? So that government projects are not delayed. So government is looking into that direction, and hopefully in the near future, like we have amended other laws, you will hear that that one has been implemented. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Okoboy. Thank you, Engineer Abdon. Hopefully you have some clarity on that. I want to move on to the third question, where the gentleman over there asked, the disbundling or the unbundling, will it cause disruption, but also emphasize the minimum disruption? I think this one would go to you, Dr. Okoboy, regarding the market and how possibly we can still maintain the same level of service regardless of the unbundling in this case.
Thank you. I'm a little laughing because the issue of unbundling, which he mentioned, the discussion, the presentations have indicated that it was a policy issue which Cabinet resolved on, and it is an activity which is being undertaken seamlessly. The issue about sustainability of supply, minimum disruption, that is important to the regulator and to the consumers, and being part of the government system, we are looking at ways to minimize that disruption, and I believe that in all aspects, where there has been any change, either in companies that are operating and maintaining networks, there has been seamless change with minimum disruption. And this is going to happen in the same way. There will be minimum My colleague is here, he's aware of what is going on, but at the government level of any bringing together of the different companies into one national company is going to be undertaken by government seamlessly. And the policy team is here to attest. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Engineer Abdon, you'd want to further emphasize on that? Still on the policy side.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. What I wanted to add that change is always fact of life. And normally when there is a change, you must have a strategy on how to ensure that there is seamless change. So the ministry has already put in place necessary committees which have come up with roadmaps, which have looked at the risks and how to mitigate these risks so that we have seamless transition. And if some of these people, I didn't inform them that now ROIA is mainstreamed in the Ministry of Energy, they wouldn't know. So that's one of the results of these teams that are working tirelessly to make sure that we have a seamless transition. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause to the panel. At this point, allow me to thank our dear panelists for giving us those wonderful insights, but then also clarifying on most of these sector issues. We all know that these are real issues that we are grappling with as a sector, and it's upon all of us to act in our respective capacities to ensure that, again, we contribute to the energy transition that has been mentioned here, again in line with the targets that have been set in the Energy Policy 2023. With those remarks, allow me, gentlemen and ladies, to thank you for being a wonderful audience and bearing with me for this session, and close off the session at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give a round of applause to our moderator, Henry Jumba, country coordinator from GIZ, from the Get Transform project. Thank you, Henry. So Henry and his team were addressing aspects of policy, something which I'd like to tickle your interest about after lunch is aspects now of digitization. How do we get forward and how can we now have smarter systems in terms of grid modernization? And then, of course, the big ticket discussion, financing. Where do we get the moolah, the chums, the cash, the cente from? So all that and more is going to happen after lunch, but right now I think it's only fair that we've had such a pregnant discussion that it's time for us now to partake of consumption. So I'd like to invite us all to have lunch. We have 1 hour for our lunch break. Lunch is going to happen in that giant tent near the flag mast. That is down the steps. You walk towards the main gate, and then you walk as if you're going to, you'll see lots of flags and a giant tent there. We'd like to finish that within 1 hour and be back here by past. Thank you very much and bon appetit. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just kindly reminding everybody that before you go for your lunch, kindly ensure that you have your lunch coupon. Your coupon entitles you to one meal with a drink. And speaking about drinks, seeing that we are a sustainable organization, I'm sure you've all noticed the absence of plastic bottles on the tables, but there are water points in the corner, so feel free. Oh, that was accidental. You know that that happened accidentally. But as you can see, the majority of us, we are very, very sustainable. That's why you'll have water only in those corners. All right, thank you very much, and we'll see you after lunch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about to kick off. Please take your seats. Kindly take your seats so that we can kick off with the next session. Welcome back from your lunch. I hope you all had a great time and we're all energized to get ready to rock and roll to discuss digitalization, smart grids, and grid modernization. So this particular session is going to be moderated by ERA. So kindly take your seats. We're just about to begin. Point of interest, please. If you have misplaced your phone, kindly see the Master of Ceremony. Kindly see the Master of Ceremony. If you have misplaced your phone, please see the Master of Ceremony. Okay, welcome back. I'd like to call the acting CEO from the Electricity Regulatory Authority, Dr. Geoffrey Okoboy, to the lectern. Let's give him a round of applause as he makes his way there.
Hello there. Good afternoon. I know we have had lunch and the day is cool, meaning that we need to warm ourselves up for the afternoon session. So let me try again. Good afternoon. Good. So, as Dr. Mitch has said, we are looking at smart grids. We are talking about grid modernization. And we are talking about digitization. Grid modernization should be the universal set which takes into digitization and smart grids. So generally we are talking about how can we modernize our grid. We need to take care of the new technologies that are available. We have phones that can now take pictures. We have cameras. We have drones. We have smart meters. We have all these new technologies we can work with to improve and make our grid modern. So this is what we are going to talk about. And who are the better people to talk about this other than those who are operating these grids? Those who have been around for the maybe 10 or more years. So we are going to have a presentation from UETCL. Engineer Masco has been around for the many years, I can't tell. He will tell us how many years he has been around, and he has seen this grid at the transmission level grow from a small grid to where we are. Who knew that it would even be in Karamoja? Now we have a grid as far as Karamoja. Who knew that it would be in West Nile? I can see that the grid is reaching West Nile. So he has been in charge of that and his team. At the distribution level, Paul has seen it all, from UEB days to UEDCL days before Umeme came in, and he's still superintending, and he's going to take over again. This gentleman is a well-seasoned character in the distribution and supply level. So, colleagues, allow me to welcome these two gentlemen. But let us start with the first presentation from Engineer Masiko. Please, you are welcome, and you have your podium to take. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good after lunch all. I'm here just to give you a run through of UETCL, who we are, where we are, and how we have taken advantage of some of the innovations towards the drive to achieve smart grid or smart substations. I'm not sure if our presentation could be projected, maybe to